Hello and welcome to another episode of Plugged In from YAA Electric. My name is Justin Fisher, and today I'm joined by Justice from the YAA community. Justice, how are you doing on this lovely Friday?
I am doing fantastic. No heat yet here, so it's a good day so far.
Yeah, it doesn't get hot where I live. I mean, a hot day, people whine about it when it's 85 here, and it was like 57 this morning. It's beautiful here in the
Mm.
mountains of Appalachia. But today, we've got some big news. We're going to talk all about the latest second quarter EV sales numbers and market share updates because we now have all of the automaker sales numbers in from the second quarter, which I believe would be April through June, right? Yeah, April, May,
Yeah,
June. So that will be our headline today. There's some kind of surprising changes in there, not just the one with Tesla losing market share. That's been expected for years now because we've known that more and more EVs are coming to market. But there's some other surprises in there from Ford, General Motors, Kia, Hyundai, and we'll talk all about that. But we have breaking news. We have breaking news. I should have changed my background picture, but this is literally breaking news. Three sources have told the industry leading automotive news that the first electric vehicle on sale for mass production in the United States is on the chopping block. It's going to be canceled. The Nissan Leaf. Now, I remember in the like 2005 to 2010 range, I was always interested in hybrids because I was just fascinated at how the automotive industry was changing away from pure combustion engines to hybrids. And then when 2010, 2011 came along and the Nissan Leaf made it into America, I was just fascinated with that car. But really, Justice, are we surprised that the Nissan Leaf is headed for the exit, considering that it never got a significant update at all to its powertrain? I mean, it's now at the bottom of the list for range, charging speed, but also at the bottom of the list for price. Are we surprised? It's one of the only affordable electric options that buyers have today.
yeah, but I mean, the big surprise I think is that it hung on this long with this much competition. Um, I don't, I don't think it should have. I think they could have kept it around longer if they had updated it, as you said. But come on, you ever seen a Leaf not charging?
Yeah.
I've never seen one driving. It's always charging.
And
That's all they do.
that's true. It's fascinating because we actually have someone over on the YAA community forum. We have a member who has been consulting us about whether or not they should go ahead and purchase a 2022 Nissan Leaf. And from my perspective, this is going to greatly change the recommendations I give this driver because I would not want to buy the only EV with a CHAdeMO charge port right now and then 5 years time be stuck with an EV that's hard to charge because think about cost cutting when you're installing DC fast chargers. You're not going to want to add a CHAdeMO charge port if everyone else is using CCS or Tesla. So this is just an interesting predicament that I think is going to send far more sales to the Chevy Bolt because that will now
Yeah.
be the one affordable option under $30,000 without markups. But yeah, this is not surprising to those of us who followed the EV scene for some time, but I think it will be surprising and a bit disappointing to drivers who are just getting into the car market. Maybe it's their first vehicle, and I've spoken to people who really want an EV for their first car. They've had the Leaf on their radar because of affordability. If you don't travel very much, it's a solid option for driving around town. But unfortunately, it's going to be on the way out, it looks like. Now, Automotive News says that their sources were divided as to whether or not the Leaf name will live on into the future. Now, I'm pretty sure it won't because I think Nissan is going to want a fresh start. They've got the Aria on the way, but the Nissan Aria electric crossover, it's a whole different vehicle class. We're talking about
Yeah.
basically almost premium EV. I mean, I haven't seen it in person yet. I don't think anyone really has, but from what we know about the Nissan Aria, I mean, it's going to be mostly costing over $50,000 on almost every trim. Um, Maybe around 300 miles of range, faster charging. But it's what I'm saying is it's in a completely different class from the Leaf. The sources also told them that there are plans in the works to replace the Leaf with a more modernized affordable Nissan EV, and that's great. But I can't help but wonder how far down the road that's going to be. I'd imagine that'd be like 2024. Any other thoughts, Justice?
Well, yeah, I mean, I do think the Leaf name will come back. That's how these things work.
Yeah.
Give it 5-6 years and Nissan will reintroduce the Leaf. It'll be completely different. It won't be anything like the current vehicle, but it'll be a, hey, nostalgia, come back. We were the first mass market EV, and they'll put something out there. But I think they'll let it die off for reputation right now, and then bring it back for nostalgia later.
You heard it here first from Justin Fisher, YAA Electric, 2025 Nissan Leaf off-road electric crossover. We'll see. We'll see about that. But yeah, we'll definitely dig into some other news here in a bit. But let's talk about electric vehicle sales and market share, because the second quarter numbers are fascinating. Now, I'm going to give the headlines for everyone to soak in, to absorb for a bit, and then we'll talk about the details, because there are some interesting tidbits in the details. Tesla's EV market share in the US dropped from 74.8% in the first quarter of this year to 66.1% in the second quarter. Why? We'll talk about it in a minute, but basically it's competition. Tesla is still by far the leader of EV sales, and especially when you look at sales numbers. We'll get into that. Another headline: fully electric vehicles had 5.6% US market share overall in the second quarter. That's a new record. It's up slightly from 5.3% in the first quarter. But still, this is an increase at a time when the overall industry has seen sales decline because of supply chain constraints. So that's looking up for EVs. When you include hybrid powertrains, plug-in hybrids with that number, you're looking at over 12% market share, specifically 12.6%. So we could round up and call it 13 if we really want to. Plug-in hybrids remain a popular option. They are typically a little bit easier to find at a dealership lot than a full EV. Not always the case. Though we've seen huge success with the Jeep Wrangler 4xe. It's a Wrangler, right, Justice?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've still never seen one. I want to see one. I want to drive one.
They're out there. They're
probably where you live in California.
Yeah. Out here, there's quite a few of them. But
Yeah,
I deal with them with members all the time. They can usually find them. It takes a little bit, but in a day you can find one around you.
Yeah, and in the second quarter, Jeep sold more 4xe plug-in hybrids than Toyota sold RAV4 Primes. That's just weird.
Find a RAV4 Prime.
I know, it's just weird to think about.
There's 42 of them in the United States.
Wow.
So, that has something to do with it.
Yeah, and I get excited when I see like a Volvo XC40 Recharge. So I can't imagine seeing a Jeep 4xe. Do they have unique badging on them to where you kind of know what they are and know that they're different?
I think they say. I think on the back. It's been a long time since I've seen one. I don't remember, but I do believe they do say it on the back.
And some other headlines. 196,788 fully electric vehicles were sold in Q2. That's a lot. Do you think so, Justice? I mean, that's a 13% increase from Q1. We've seen the trajectory just go up and up and up at the same time that the overall vehicle market has been in a slump because of the supply chain. We're almost at 200,000 EVs sold each quarter. I mean, could we say this all started with the Nissan Leaf?
You could say that if you wanted to.
Or what else could you say?
There's an argument that it started with Tesla.
Okay,
but I mean, at least Leaf was first. It just wasn't very viable.
Yeah. Now, the Leaf was first, but Tesla brought EVs to the masses by making them attractive and capable. No doubt about that. And if you're just joining us, the Nissan Leaf looks like it's headed for the exits. Nissan's going to cancel its very first electric vehicle, which was also the first EV for sale for mass production at affordable prices in the US. When did the original Tesla Roadster go on sale for like whatever, $150,000?
What was it, 2000?
Pretty sure it's
10.
either 2008 or 2009 is when they started
I
making
think
them. But the point is that the Leaf was the first mass-produced EV. Sure, it takes over an hour to charge from empty, like sometimes well over an hour. Um, the early models only went 80 miles on a charge. Imagine that, 80 miles. So it's great for scooting around downtown or maybe as like a cab, but it's not a travel vehicle. Now,
it would be great for my elderly retired mother
yes,
who
yes.
drives about 1,000 miles a year.
Yes, and we got a question in the chat. Will Nissan and BMW hit the 200,000 sale cap for the EV tax credit this year? Pretty sure they won't, but they're close. Nissan is particularly close.
Yeah.
Toyota just hit the cap. But let's keep this in mind. Thank you, Learning Fast, for that question in the chat. Keep the questions coming. In the second quarter of 2022, Justice, give me a guess. How many Nissan Leafs, the only electric vehicle currently sold by Nissan, how many were sold in the second quarter? Give me a guess.
I guess what, 3,000?
Yeah, 3,200. So
20.
at a snail's pace, 3,200 Leafs sold in the second quarter. It might take another year for Nissan to reach that cap. So if you're not familiar with the 7,500 federal EV tax credit, depending on your federal tax liability, you can get up to $7,500 off of next year's taxes by or this year's taxes by purchasing an electric vehicle. If it's a plug-in hybrid, you can get basically it's based on the capacity of the battery, but usually it ends up being around $4,000. Correct me if I'm wrong, Justice, with a plug-in hybrid usually.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Just depend. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
and
your state incentives change things too. So
yeah, and I'm not even used to thinking about that because of where I live. I don't have any state incentives.
yeah,
But in California, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Illinois, Colorado, there are several states that have great state incentives if you're thinking about purchasing an EV. And you can find out the details about the best state incentives for electric vehicles at joinyaa.com. Just search YAA state EV incentives. I made a great resource that will help you navigate that. But yeah, Massachusetts, Igor, is another one. Yeah, there's a lot of EV incentives out there. Now, let's get a little bit further into the numbers, shall we, for second quarter sales? Yeah, let's do it. So year over year, we've got a big jump in EV market share. Q2 2021, we were looking at 2.7%. Q2 2022, we're at 5.6%. So that's quite a dramatic jump year over year in market share. Now, when we look at total sales numbers year over year, last year, second quarter of 2021, we were at 118,000 fully electric sales in the United States. Now we're at 196,000, quickly rushing for 200,000. So these are big increases, and I can't help but wonder how much higher would these EV sales numbers be if, number one, let's say the average EV was not $66,000 as it currently is, and say it was more like, I don't know, let's be generous. 50,000 was the average EV. That EV sales would be through the roof. That would be wild. And also, if supply chain constraints just simply weren't there, let's say COVID never happened, can't help but wonder where EV sales would be today. What do you think the
I
market share would be in like a perfect world in second quarter 2022?
reading the polls lately, and a lot of the never EVers have moved into the maybe not category. So I think they would be a lot higher. And I'm going to say even that the price is not the number one driver here. It's availability. I think we would be a lot higher if we just had much more available vehicles. If they were on the lots and available, and you could go down, test drive it, and pick it up like you used to in 2019 on any vehicle, I think we would be way over. Instead of 5.6, I believe would be well over 7%.
Yeah, I would even say maybe even 10%. A survey earlier this year found that the number one concern for EV skeptics is where to charge it. and then number 2 was the price. Now I can't help but wonder if many of the survey respondents simply didn't know how expensive EVs are, because to me that's the number one obstacle. But yeah, charging infrastructure too. That's another thing that could definitely affect how quickly EVs are adopted. And maybe later we'll touch on some very interesting news about that front as well. Now we've got Freddie in the chat saying, do we think that automakers should reduce the price of their EVs by the incentive amount once they are no longer qualifying for the federal incentive? That's kind of what Chevrolet has done with the Bolt, what GM has done. Dropping the price by $6,000 for the 2023 model, and surprisingly retroactively giving discounts to those who just purchased a Chevy Bolt. I don't know. It's kind of a game, because you got to figure out how much money are automakers actually spending building and researching and designing these EVs. What are their profit margins looking like? And then of course you have to think about the dealer's profit margins. But of course, we've got Tesla.
I think the dealers are concerned about that enough themselves. We don't have to think about their profit margin.
You're right. And Tesla, 3 out of 4 EV buyers. Well, now I can't even say that. I would say what? 3 out of 5 EV buyers. Maybe 5 out of 7 EV buyers chooses a Tesla. And Tesla's just direct to sales, so we don't even need to talk about that right now. Direct to consumer sales. But it's just fascinating to think about that concept of dropping the price by the equivalent tax credit amount if you no longer qualify. So let's cover who no longer qualifies for the federal EV tax credit. Chevrolet, because of the Bolt. Chevrolet, or any General Motors EV, right? Which now we've got the Cadillac Lyriq coming to market. Pretty soon, the Silverado EV would be making its hands into at least fleet operators by the end of 2023. But General Motors no longer qualifies. Tesla no longer qualifies. Why? They've both sold far over 200,000 EVs, and plug-in hybrids do count towards these numbers. I'm not sure what the formula is, but they do count, and that's why Toyota has just reached the cap too. But whenever an automaker reaches the 200,000 sale limit, it's not like these federal incentives disappear overnight. There is a 1-year phase out period. So if you're interested in the Toyota BZ4X or the RAV4 Prime, if you can find either of those, you still got about 11 months, I believe, to get that federal tax credit. But good question.
Order now and you may actually get it in 11 months.
Maybe.
Probably not, though.
I wonder if the Toyota BZ4X stop sale is still going on from the wheels falling off threat. It sounds like I made that up.
I haven't heard that they resumed yet. But...
Yeah, I'm not making that up, guys. The wheels falling off was a risk, a recall-worthy risk, I'd say, for the Toyota BZ4X. But our best performing YouTube video over here at YAA Electric has been the one of me talking trash about the Toyota BZ4X, and it's had a quite polarizing response. I've had a lot of people point out that they feel the BZ4X will be on the road for years longer than other EVs like Tesla. That's what they say. And then there's one good point that they've had. This is a valid point. I was going off about the all-wheel drive variant of the BZ4X, which takes over an hour to charge. Like it really does. Multiple charging tests have shown that. And I was just pointing out how ridiculous that is. And then how in the all-wheel drive variant, you only get 227 miles of range. I don't feel that's adequate for someone who travels. But it's been interesting seeing the responses to that video. And a lot of people love Toyota, and it sounds like they're willing to give it a chance. And then they pointed out that the front-wheel drive variant of the BZ4X charges a bit faster, not a lot faster, but a bit faster, and gets about 252 miles of range. So that is true. I should have realized better range, but I'm still not a fan of the BZ4X.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still behind the current times.
Yeah.
In charging speeds and range, really. So I love Toyota. I want Toyota to do nothing but succeed. In this category, I want them to take off, but to me, that just isn't the vehicle. I want it to be.
Yeah, my first car was a Toyota. I love Toyota, but I would not spend $45,000 to $50,000, maybe even $53,000 for top level trim on an EV in 2022 that's going to be outdated like immediately.
Yeah, it hits the road outdated, and it's not. I sold Toyotas. I love them. It's not, I don't. I'm not bashing Toyota ever. Um, I think they're behind the times in this, and I think it's purposeful. As the CEO almost got booted out for saying we don't want to go EV, we have no plans to go that route, and then sort of some backlash, and this is what they came out with. I think they wanted more lead time here. So, I know they will eventually come out with a great EV. This just isn't it for me.
Yeah. While we're on the topic, and then we'll get back to our EV sales numbers. Toyota has revealed that they're going to bring the first solid state battery to market in 2025, which is big news in EV world. However, it's going to be in a plug-in hybrid, which, I mean, if you really get to thinking about the research and development aspect of this, and I know Mark is in the chat, he's a battery expert himself. Let us know, Mark, but it does kind of make sense to bring such a revolutionary new battery technology to market in a model that basically has a backup, which is the combustion engine in a plug-in hybrid.
Yep.
Maybe this is just how they're going to experiment with it in real world driving, and we'll see what happens later in the decade. But wow, I just can't imagine where we'll be in 2030 with EV technology. How outdated
Yeah,
will my Ioniq 5 be? I don't know. Crazy.
I think in 10 years, Toyota is going to have is going to have a huge market share because of things like solid state battery. They're just taking a different, slower approach to it than governments are sort of demanding people go to. And Toyota's like, no, there's better technology out there. We just need to test it and do it. And I think you're exactly right. I think a plug-in hybrid is the perfect way to do it because if there's issues, you have your gas as a backup.
Yeah, interesting. So I know I bashed Tesla a little bit for losing 9% of their market share quarter over quarter, but still, let's look at these numbers right here on the screen. Second quarter 2022, Tesla sold 130,000 vehicles in the United States. How do we know this? Based on vehicle registration data provided from Experian and Kelley Blue Book. So that's a lot. I mean, look at Tesla's share and then scroll down and look at the other automakers. Tesla is still by far the dominant electric vehicle seller in the United States, but still they dropped 9% since last quarter. And I think that's going to continue with more competition.
Well, let me say this. First off, in Q2, they did 130,000. Is that more or less than they did in Q1?
About the same.
Yeah, almost exactly the same. So they may have lost market share, but actually the sales went up by like 800 or something. So they actually sold more vehicles in Q2 than in Q1. And for market share, their market share, if you compare Q2 2022 to Q2 2021, they're up. And in Q2 2021, they saw a dip in their market share there from Q1 as well. So I will say that Q3, you will see the market share go back up, even though there's more competition.
Yeah, and this is a good time to scroll up and take a look at, scroll down, this resource, which I have created over at the YAA Electric Vehicle Market Share Guide. This is how market share has changed over time. So let's take a look at this together. Tesla currently at 66%. Well, a year ago, they were at 64%. It's just really, I don't know. These are blurred lines here where we're also talking about mostly the effect of the supply chain constraints on legacy automakers and their inability to navigate the chip shortage, whereas Tesla had a pretty solid supply chain lined up for the worst of the chip shortage. They were able to keep their production numbers high and even growing by a lot over the past year, while other automakers had to basically cancel most of their Mustang Mach-E production in the case of Ford. The Bolt was out of production or out of sales because of the huge recall. Volkswagen Group, we saw Volkswagen ID4, a great EV. We saw the ID4 sales drop precipitously by the effects of not only the chip shortage, but the war in Ukraine, because a lot of their supply chain is located in Eastern Europe. So I don't know, it's hard to talk about these numbers without turning this into a long conversation, because it's really about the supply chain. Tesla is still dominant, but their market share is going down. And I remember seeing forecasts that by about 2022, they said Tesla's market share would be under 50%. We're probably still headed that way. And I mean, honestly, that would be a
Well,
good thing, wouldn't it, Justice? Because
yeah, that would be
competition
amazing.
benefits everyone.
Yeah, I mean, even Elon himself welcomes competition. Imagine any of these other automakers having a 50% market share.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those are incredible numbers to even think about in the first place. So yeah, Tesla should be down in the 10% range with everybody else eventually. That'd be fantastic. That's competition, and that's when we're going to see great innovation.
Which reminds me, Justice, what are your thoughts on Bank of America Merrill Lynch analysts who think that in just 2 years' time, 2 years, they say Tesla's market share will be around 15%? I don't think that's what we're going to see. I could see Tesla's market share being 35% in 2 years' time, still selling more and more vehicles as time progresses. But the reason Tesla's market share could drop so much is the increasing production from Ford with the F-150 Lightning, General Motors with the Silverado EV and Equinox EV, Volkswagen, Hyundai, Kia. Look at Hyundai, Kia's numbers in the second quarter. They've jumped up to 9.1% market share. Hyundai, Kia, and Ford are the next biggest players behind Tesla. But Justice, what do you think about that 15% prediction from Bank of America analysts for Tesla's market share?
That's just silly talk.
That's
I
just
mean,
silly.
that's just it's ridiculous. Tesla will be 35-40% still in a couple of years. Don't forget, the Cybertruck is coming out, and that's going to increase their market share. Yeah, maybe. Tesla's always doing something more. They're building more factories. These other these other manufacturers, they're doing great. They have plans for factories, while Tesla's actually currently building them and getting stuff online. So 2 years, no way. Eventually, will they be at 15%? Yeah, hopefully they will.
Yeah,
It'll be
that'd be
great.
a good thing.
Yeah, that would be great. But not in 2 years, in
Yeah.
8 years.
Let's take a look one more time at these numbers. Some other surprises. Let's look at how Rivian has really started to crank up production. I mean, it's one thing to say that Rivian has increased production by 300% quarter over quarter, but when you look at the numbers, it really means going from 1,200 to 4,400. So it's it's not like they're going to take over the market, but still, good job, Rivian, bringing more of those R1Ts into production, and also some of those fancy electric vans for the Amazon order. The R1S
The
is
R1S is going to change things for them. I think that's their.
tell me about
I
that. Tell
think
me about
that's their spark.
because I'm a fan of the
I think.
R1S. I just can't afford it.
Oh, I am a huge fan of Rivian. Even though they're struggling really hard, I really hope they get through that. I know Amazon has gone elsewhere for their vehicles now, but I think the R1S is that category that we've talked about before on here that nobody's producing. No one's producing a full-size SUV family vehicle, and the Rivian is an amazing vehicle already. I've driven the R1T. That was great. I've seen all the specs and walkthroughs of the R1S. I haven't got my hands on one yet, but I might go out to San Jose this weekend and change that. And I think it's the vehicle that every soccer mom is looking for that does not exist currently, and I
Yeah, I
think
just
that's
wish.
going to change Rivian a lot.
I mean, I would imagine if the Rivian R1S was starting at like 65,000. I know they can't afford to do that right now, but it
Yeah.
would be so popular, because we've had users on the YAA community forum say that, they've asked, when is a full-sized electric SUV going to come out? Well, the R1S is what you get. The Tesla Model X, of course, is amazing, but those are really pricey options. Why don't we see more electric full-sized SUVs? Is it because of their poor efficiency? They would need more batteries, and automakers are basically rationing their battery production right now, battery allocations. What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely efficiency right now. The bigger that is, the heavier it is, and the more batteries you have to run through that and to have any real range out of it. You're going to have this big battery pack. But um, R1S versus Model X, by the way, no comparison. The R1S beats the Model X for a family SUV anytime. I love the X. I would drive an X today, but give me the choice, I'll take the R1S. It's a better SUV family vehicle.
And in the chat, we have Happy Hippo saying, do you think more brands will come out with more EV crossovers besides the Tesla Model Y? Yes, that's basically 2022 has been the year of either launching electric crossovers or announcing those that are to come next year. Because I'm just going to list them off. Okay, you've got the Volkswagen ID.4. These are all electric crossovers. Volkswagen ID.4. Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Kia EV6, they're a bit lower stature, but they're still crossovers, especially the interior volume. I have a Hyundai Ioniq 5, and it really feels like a crossover. You've got the Mustang Mach-E coming up pretty soon. You've got the Honda Prologue, which we've had Mark in the chat saying that he's looking at Honda bringing more and more hybrid powertrains to market. So let's talk about that in a second, Mark. But let's see what else is there. The Chevrolet Equinox EV, which is one that I am looking forward to most because of affordability. If you're looking for an electric crossover that gets decent range and decent charging and does not cost $60,000, it's more affordable than that. Chevy says late next year they're bringing the Chevy Equinox EV to market. Justice, any other crossovers that you're keeping in mind? Because 3 out of 4 buyers in America do choose either a crossover SUV or truck. So what are you thinking about this market segment?
Yeah, I think I can't think of any more that you haven't named, but I think it's a underrepresented segment. Even the Model Y, I argue, is it really a crossover? It feels more like a Model 3 hatchback to me
So does my
than
Ioniq 5. Yeah.
more than an actual true crossover. I think the crossover and SUV segment, as I said, that's the segment that everyone needs to be targeting if they want to make success. And the more they do that, yes, trucks are important without a doubt, but this crossover is running. Yeah. This crossover segment and SUV segment is the future. It's what people want to buy in vehicles, and EV automakers need to start focusing on that.
Yeah, and Dwayne in the chat, I love your comment because I forgot to mention that Ford has said they're
Yeah.
building an Expedition EV. That would be a huge seller at a decent price. I think that is going to be worth waiting for. Some electric crossovers that personally I feel are worth waiting for. The Equinox EV because of affordability, and the Ultium powertrain from GM, which means faster charging, more range. Expedition EV, we don't know much about it, but I think that would be great considering Ford's massive high dollar push into EVs. The Honda Prologue, which, believe it or not, is going to be built by General Motors with the Ultium battery platform. And that's why I think the Honda Prologue has so much promise, because it's going to be Ultium powered. And GM really seems to know what they're doing with this powertrain, as far as I can tell. But those are some EVs on the way that I would definitely wait for. Are there any others that you're most anticipating for, say, 2023, 2024?
Well, I don't know. What about the Hummer? Isn't that such a great, wonderful EV?
Are they already selling the version that has it's not like an SUV, is it? Like, is it considered an SUV? I've seen Hummer EV trucks, but are they selling the version that has basically an SUV design?
I'm not yet. I know that I know of not yet. I think it's 2020. I think it's 2023. But their efficiency is about as efficient as an ICE Hummer was. Say
Well,
that they live up to their name.
the data shows that the Hummer EV has the same effect on the planet as driving a Toyota Corolla. And that sounds hard to believe. I'd imagine it'd be far worse than driving a
Yeah,
Toyota Corolla because it has well over 200 kilowatt hour capacity battery. That's a lot of rare earth minerals that need to go into powering a very, very inefficient EV. If you're looking for an efficient electric truck, you're going to have a better time going for the F-150 Lightning, Rivian R1T, Silverado EV on the way, and maybe the Cybertruck someday. I don't know. But yeah, don't go for the Hummer EV if you're trying to like do something good for the planet with an EV purchase, because that's definitely not the direction to go.
no, the Hummer is probably the most true EV to its name. It is as efficient and as great as the ICE vehicle version of it. So
We had we had a good question in the chat just now. Is there an electric Tahoe on the way?
oh, I haven't heard of one. That would be a great one.
I'm searching now. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that.
Everything I'm seeing
Chevy.
says it's not confirmed or anything. So I would imagine GM is going to, because General Motors famously said last year that, I forget, is it 2035? That by 2035 they're gonna stop sales of combustion powered vehicles. And Zach and I were joking that that either means GM is going all electric by 2035 or they're going out of business. So I'd imagine that there will be a fully electric Tahoe or Suburban, but because of battery supply constraints, I would imagine that these really large full-sized electric SUVs will be at least 2 years away. Automakers are using the batteries they can get from Panasonic, LG Chem, and others, CATL, to build more efficient vehicles right now, because you can build more vehicles with the same amount of batteries if you consider efficiency.
Well, everyone's going to be watching that Toyota solid state, right? That's the goal that I think most people are going to be shooting for. So anyone building a solid state battery, everyone's going to sort of be watching that for a little bit, because that solves a lot of these problems as well, or
Yes,
at
yes,
least
indeed.
improves it.
And that's something I like to kindly remind those who say EVs are horrible for the environment, is that they're assuming that battery production, raw earth mining, efficiency, all of that, they're assuming that it's never going to get better. It's never going to change. Just like you would assume that the combustion engine was the same now as it was in 1920. Not the case. Innovation is propelling this forward, and efficiency, energy density with the solid state batteries, with the weight of the batteries themselves, solid state batteries would be far, far less heavy than today's lithium ion batteries. All of that combined and much more has a lot of promise for the future of EVs, not just with the environmental aspects, but price, so many different things. I'm looking forward to what the scene will look like 5 years from now. It's going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, take Moore's law into account, and in 10 years, what we're driving now, EV wise, is going to look like a Model T. It's not going to even be close.
Yeah. Good question. Good comment in the chat. I'm a dinosaur. I would buy an EV Malibu if they go fully EV. I would buy an EV Chevy Caprice. Let's do that, Justice. Let's get that custom mod.
Can we do a EV 68 Shelby Fastback?
Yes, you can make anything electric.
I would drive that all day long.
Yeah, we can make anything electric with these custom. There are multiple, like, I guess you'd call it boutique electric conversion businesses out there. Many of them in California, where you're at, Justice. that will turn anything electric for you if you've got the money for it. I
Yeah.
agree with what Mark said here in the chat, and I know we got to wrap this up pretty soon, but
Yep.
there are many chemistry blends in the labs. This is true. I mean, we've just seen the LFP, lithium iron phosphate batteries, making it into vehicles, particularly with the Tesla Model 3, meaning that you can charge to full and not worry so much about degradation. So that is true, Mark, and you definitely know more about that than I do, and I look forward to learning more from you as we continue the journey here at YAA Electric. I think I wanted to hit on just a few more times. Justice, I know we've got the big show coming on at noon over on the Ray and Zach channel. Who's the guest today? Is it Kimberly's Corner?
Yes, it will be Kimberly, and Zach is out today, so it's going to be Ray and Kimberly, and I'm not sure if Phil's going to
Oh,
be there or not. It'll be a surprise.
yeah, so make sure you like and subscribe this video, pretty please. And if you're listening on the podcast version, thank you so much for tuning in. Like and subscribe. We're also on Instagram, YAA Electric, where I post almost every day some pretty interesting electric vehicle news, reviews, and things I see over at the charging stations. Anything else on your mind today? I know today's a special holiday for those of you in California, right, Justice?
That's right. Today is the anniversary of the very first airport hotel ever built in the United States in 1929, and it was built in Oakland, California. So the very first airport hotel right here in Northern California in the Bay,
Wow.
1929. So, hey, everyone, go out and stay at a hotel because you won't get a flight.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Maybe you can catch a flight on a prototype electric airplane. Hopefully it doesn't crash.
I would 100% go do that right now if I
Awesome.
could.
And
I would be all for that.
and then Justice, can I have just 2 more minutes of your time? Because there's two
Yeah.
other news items that I really want to share with everyone. Canoe. We've all forgotten about Canoe, the very, very startup EV maker, currently based out of Arkansas, where Walmart happens to be based. Walmart has placed an order for 10,000 Canoe EVs. Now they build these. They basically have two versions of their electric vehicles. They've got a little truck version, which is pretty far from production, and then a delivery van type version. So Canoe, you may not have heard of them before. Many were suspecting that they might be going out of business pretty soon. But it looks like Walmart is coming along to save the day with an order of 10,000 Canoe EVs for their delivery vehicles. Interestingly enough, Justice, have you seen what was in the contract that they are about to sign? There's like a clause that says they cannot compete with a certain big name brand. Do you know who this is?
Target? I don't know.
Amazon.
Oh, Amazon.
Would you
Yeah.
sign a contract that says you cannot sell your EVs to Amazon while we're buying EVs from you?
I can see why Walmart wants that. I think yes, if I was a startup, I mean, Canoe's we say startup,
But they've been
but
around
man,
for a while.
I wrote in a Canoe at Google, like 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, that's what Google was using. So odd that that they're still there. But yes, for a startup company like that, like right, Amazon's getting Rivian, they're getting these other ones. Why wouldn't you say, okay, I'll exclusively sign with you to get the startup for X amount of years? Not in perpetuity, but if you're on that verge of we're not sure if we're going to make it, and Walmart comes in and says, okay, but you can't sell to Amazon. Yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah. And the other news item I wanted to share before we go is that VinFast, the batteries not included automaker, has decided that they are going to start opening up their shops in California, their stores, basically direct to consumer, just like Tesla. I believe there might be a few already open. Justice, how soon are you going to be able to run out to one of these VinFast stores and check out their cars? Because I am way too far from California. I won't make it anytime soon, but I wish I could head there.
Well, we have 6 opening. By today.
Oh, today.
By
Wow.
today, yeah. So there are, if everything went to plan, there are 6 now in
Fun.
California, and they plan on doing 30 of them by the end of the year.
Now,
But yeah, I believe one of them is in San Jose, so not very far from me.
wow, well, you'll have to go on assignment and check that out and take some good pictures.
Yeah, maybe I'll check out VinFast and the R1S at the same time.
Yes,
That
please
would be a
do.
fun field trip.
Yeah, I've talked a lot of trash about VinFast because you have to pay a subscription fee for the battery. However, I hope they succeed, and maybe they'll adapt their model to the US market. I don't know. I still don't think battery subscriptions are going to prove to be very popular, but I hope they succeed. They're building a giant factory in North Carolina. The southeastern US is quickly becoming an EV powerhouse for the supply chain that will be needed for EV infrastructure, and I hope they succeed. So we'll see what happens pretty soon. I do like your
Let,
vehicles. We've got space in the chat. Big fan of the VF9. I think they look
yep.
great and are capable. It's just the battery subscriptions that give me a bad feeling about their future.
Well, let me push back real quick, just
Please
real
do.
quick on that. That for the, because I hear the people, I will never buy an EV, blah, blah, blah. What's going to happen to those batteries in 10 years, people all day long. Well, this is an excellent, excellent answer to that. You're going to rent your battery. So as battery technology increases faster than you're going to turn over your vehicle if you're going to keep it for 10 years, this is actually a great model because you can get the newest battery technology while keeping your vehicle. Your vehicle can get more and more efficient. You can get longer ranges, shorter charging times with this model without ever having to change your vehicle. So I think there is a market and advantage to the way VinFast is doing it.
I appreciate that, Justice. That's something for me to think about. And I really do hope that they find their buyers in the market because that would be awesome. And I want to test drive one myself. Yeah, I've had a lot of pushback from my negativity towards VinFast, and I like the thought challenges that you guys give me. So we'll see what happens in the future. But pretty soon, in just 10 minutes time, we've got Kimberly's Corner over at the Ray and Zach channel. So please like, subscribe to our channel right here, YAA Electric. And then if you want to enjoy your lunch with Kimberly, and who's joining Kimberly today?
Well, I only
Ray.
know
Ray.
Ray, but I think Phil might be there.
Yeah, so you can't miss out on Ray, Kimberly, maybe Phil. These are awesome auto advocates looking to make sure that you don't get ripped off in today's wild car market. So I'm still working on convincing them, all three of them, that EVs are the future. We'll see what kind of EV hot takes they have today on the show, but I'll be tuning in. So I'll be in the chat.
You're braver than me. I've given up trying to convince someone to go, okay.
And yeah, I'll be in the chat seeing what's going on over there at the Ray and Zach channel here in a few minutes. But yeah, I'll see you guys Monday. I think Zach's going to be with us Monday. Plenty of news to talk about, but everyone have a beautiful weekend. I think today was a really great show. Feel free to email me your questions and EV comments, ideas for the show, questions about purchasing an EV, ownership experiences, anything at justin@joinyaa.com. Have a beautiful weekend. Stay safe. Yeah, see you in a few days. Bye, Justice.
Bye, guys. Have a great day.